أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu, my dear sisters in Islam. Despite the recent attack on the niqab, 2013 was not to end before a further Islamic practice was condemned and thrust into the media spotlight. If someone had told us Muslims a year ago that the Islamic rule of segregation, which is practiced in almost every Muslim social setting to a certain degree, would be linked to extremism or fringe movements, such that the Prime Minister himself would comment on the issue during an official trip, we would have thought they were insane. Yet unfortunately, this is where we find ourselves today. This issue was first sparked by an event at a London university last year, where IERA representative Hamza Georges debated atheist Professor Lawrence Krauss. False claims of forced segregation of Muslim and non-Muslim attendees led to terminology such as gender apartheid being used, and in the words of Yasmin Alabai-Brown, the Talibanization of British universities. A further investigation by right-wing group Student Rights alleged that 46 events organised by Islamic societies last year were found to have explicitly promoted segregation by gender. Television and radio debates have followed as the onslaught continues, and the discussion has now turned to voluntary segregation of Muslim students at events. The uproar that has been generated about this issue is a clear double standard, since separation of men and women in other circumstances in Britain is by no means unusual. Britain has many single-sex schools, including David Cameron's own school, Eton. Under UK laws, NHS hospitals can be fined if they fail to correctly segregate men and women in wards. Separation of men and women in most sporting events is considered normal, and the idea of mixed changing rooms or toilets would shock most people, even in a liberal society. It is clear that segregation is tolerated and deemed necessary for women's comfort, their choice respected when associated with a secular basis. Yet when Muslims adopt a separate seating arrangement based on their faith, liberal commentators scream that Muslims are unacceptably trying to change the nature of Britain by imposing extremist practices that are discriminatory towards women. But the fact that segregation is being facilitated between men and women, by men and women, shows that this is a commitment to cater for both genders. Discriminating against women would mean denying them entry or preventing their participation in the venue. Neither of these happens. And we forget that women are also part of these societies, co-organising, if not independently leading these activities. We are talking about separated seating, not patriarchy. Muslims must realise that this attack is by no means new. Similar cases were seen in 2009, when the UK anti-terrorism strategy, Contest 2, stated that extremists were those who believed in the Sharia, disagreed with Western foreign policy, or held onto the concept of a global ummah. This latest attack seeks to put segregation into the same extremist camp. It once again aims to divide the Muslim community into fringe movements, those who adhere to the Quran and Sunnah and submit to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and moderates, those who reject orthodox Islam and call for reformation, thus submitting to their own desires. Yet we know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala warns us of this reality in Surah Imran, verse 103. وَاعْتَصِمُوا بِحَبْلِ اللَّهِ جَمِيعًا وَلَا تَفَرَّقُوا. Hold fast together to the rope of Allah and do not be divided. This attack is muscular liberalism at its best, which aims to enforce secular liberal values upon the Muslim community, and we as a community must not allow ourselves to fall into this trap. Accusations have also been made that claim that segregation is not a part of Islam. However, this has been a well-established Islamic practice within fiqh for centuries, and there is no shortage of evidence to prove this. Abu Dawud narrates that the Prophet ﷺ said, we should leave this door of the mosque for women, indicating that men and women had separate entrances when attending prayers. He ﷺ also organised separate classes to teach men and women about Islam. Abu Sa'id al-Khudri radiyallahu anh narrates that some women came to the Prophet ﷺ and said, "Men have gone ahead of us in terms of acquisition of knowledge, so appoint a special day so that we may benefit also." This shows that men and women were organised in a segregated manner. This is not something that we should shy away from as a community. The segregation of the genders in Islam are part of a comprehensive set of social laws that regulate the relationship between men and women and are aimed at restricting and directing the fulfillment of sexual desires to marriage alone. These laws include the dress code, the prohibition of an unrelated man and woman being alone together, and of intimate relationships outside of marriage. These laws have a tangible, positive outcome on society through the protection of the family unit and the rights of children, and ensuring healthy interaction between men and women that is productive and not hindered or cheapened by sexual distractions. The impact these laws have and had during the history of the Islamic State were that women were valued for their intellectual capability and their contributions to society, regardless of gender, such as Fatima al-Fihri, who founded the world's first university in Morocco. Whilst we are not in an Islamic state, such background can provide an understanding of what these laws seek to achieve, a far cry from the apparent removal of the participation of women from public life. As Muslim women, the best way for us to stand up to this kind of treatment is to hold fast to our Islamic values and confidently explain them to others. We should never be ashamed of the guidance Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed us with. Jazakallah khairan for listening. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.